cognitive dissonance, and what it is it's when the mind is struggling because it's wrestling between two thoughts. It wants to do one thing, but on the other hand, it can't. It doesn't want to do something. So it's cognitive dissonance. It would be like maybe a person that's scared of heights. I've used this as an example before, but you take a person that's scared of heights and you put $100 bill at the top of a ladder. That person might be start going up this ladder, and they've got two thoughts. Number one, I'm scared to death. I don't want to get that $100 bill. But then the other thought is, I want that $100 bill. So this is cognitive dissonance. So they have an internal struggle. They want to do something, but they don't want to do it at the same time. And that's because it's your conscious mind arguing with your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind says there's $100 at the top of this. If I just go get it, I'll have it. Your subconscious mind says, nope, you're going to die if you get on that ladder. And so you've got that internal struggle. The same thing happens with dieting. We want to lose weight. We want to get healthy. We want to feel better, but we also want the donut, or we also want the soda, or whatever it is, the chocolate, the stuff that our subconscious has made us desire over time. And so the subconscious can often keep us stuck in habits and addictions because it's kind of that underlying foundational part of your mind. Think of the subconscious mind as more of maybe hard cement that's dried a little bit, and the conscious mind like wet clay. It can still be molded, and so that's one way to look at it. Appetites and desires is part of this too. This is where just the things that we want are things that your subconscious mind will encourage you to go after. Experience and repetition is part of that too with the subconscious mind. If you just have a routine that you're doing over and over and over, and someone else comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to change your routine," sometimes we fight against that because our subconscious mind doesn't want to change. It's our subconscious mind that wants to stay the same because it's always based on what's already happened and what we already know. So, all right, so the other part of the subconscious mind is the subconscious mind. It controls our emotions. It controls our joy, our fear, our anger, sadness, lust, and desire. It's in control of all of that stuff. Our subconscious mind creates these habits that bring about certain emotions in our lives, and that can trigger. For instance, I use the example of the two people walking down the street and a dog jumps out. One of them panics and runs away because they're afraid of dogs. The other one runs up to the dog and starts petting it. You got same circumstance, two different people, and sometimes our subconscious, based on what we've experienced in life, will have an emotion attached to it. For instance, the person that runs away, when they see that dog, their subconscious reminds them of fear. It reminds them that this is dangerous, and it puts up a big red flag, and your emotions start kicking in. You start sweating, and your adrenaline goes, and you act on that, and you run away because your subconscious is telling you dogs are dangerous. Dogs are dangerous. Somewhere along the line throughout your growing up, there was either a traumatic experience that significantly left a dent in your subconscious, or it was repetition over and over for a long period of time that trained your brain or conditioned your brain to be afraid of whatever it is they're afraid of. And some people's minds are conditioned differently though. And so, but just because your subconscious mind is trained a certain way doesn't mean that it's based on reality or based on truth. Sometimes it's just based on our experience, and so that can drive us the wrong direction. All right. Your subconscious is built on what you've already learned, decided, and experienced. So your subconscious is completely built on what you've already learned, decided, and experienced. See, growth cannot be initiated by the subconscious mind. The subconscious is just not built that way. It's just a storage cabinet where memories and experience go, and your brain automatically pulls those up, and it's all based on the past. Your subconscious cannot be innovative. It can't be creative and think through things that will make you grow. It just simply is a storage area for your past experience. All right.
Would that include? Can I ask you? Would that
Yep.
include say things you've seen on TV. So those would be things that you experienced, maybe not personally, but you see it, and it.
Yeah, well, I think your brain has, going back to the inputs page, I think there's a lot of things that are inputs into our brain. And sometimes over time, we don't even remember where we got that information, but we just got it.
Mhm.
So maybe it's
Yeah.
something we experienced. Maybe it's something we heard someone else. I
Right.
don't know if you guys have had that experience, but I've had that experience too when someone would bring up a book and they say, yeah, I read this in a book, and they explain something to me. And then they ask me, have you ever read that book? And sometimes I can't remember if I read that book or if I just remember somebody telling me all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
And it's the same thing with TV too. I mean, you can hear lots of really good things or really bad things on TV. You can observe things that are helpful in your life and healthy, and you can observe things that are not healthy in your life. And your subconscious isn't always going to remember the source, but it's going to remember how it made you feel. And so that's part of it. If you are not consciously aware of your behavior, then you are not a conscious participant in the result of your actions. This is really important to get. If you're not consciously aware of your behavior, then you are not a conscious participant in the results of your action. Now, think about this. There, unfortunately, I think the majority of our culture tends to rely on our subconscious mind to direct us through the day. And going back to that statistic, 75 to 92% would indicate this as well. I think a big part of our population, and I think it's getting bigger and bigger all the time, decides not to use their their conscious brain and relies on our subconscious brain. We tend to not think. It's really easy to just go through life and not really think, but just go on autopilot. That is the easiest way for us to live our lives. And we think about it. We can go through an entire day without really thinking if you wanted to. You get up and you you go to breakfast, or you get ready for, take a shower and get cleaned up, go for breakfast. Maybe on a Saturday you go watch TV for 3 hours, and you just kind of put your brain on hold and you just absorb with your subconscious whatever you're watching. Uh, then you go take a nap, and then maybe it's a day off, a lazy day off. There's not a lot to do. You could just waste a whole day and really have hardly any thinking involved at all. And unfortunately, in our culture, we're kind of trained and we're expected to really indulge in that type of idle behavior that puts your conscious mind at rest and just lets your subconscious be fed. And unfortunately, this quote basically says that if you're not consciously aware of your behavior, then you are not consciously a conscious participant in the results of your actions. And when we do that, when we put our conscious mind on, when, when we call timeout, we put this on hold, and we check out a bit, then we're not really participants in where we go. And unfortunately, if we just do this over and over and over, day after day, we go to work and we just go through the motions that we know, and we do what's in our subconscious, and we use our brains as little as we have to, we're really just not even going to be in control of where we go. We're not going to be a participant in our own actions. So that's what that means. And um, I like to just call that, idle. When you're in an idle mode, that's what happens. You just kind of cruise, and wherever you go, you go. It's like cruising. It's like floating downstream, but you don't know where the stream leads to. All right, so the next slide here, real quick.